budget hearing, starting with the fire department. And Lauren, why don't you take it away?
Okay, good afternoon. I would like to introduce Deanna Leedy from my office, who will be presenting an overview of the fire department's proposed fiscal year 24 budgets.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
The proposed fiscal year 2024 budget for the fire department totals $128.8 million, an increase of $7.2 million or 6% over the fiscal year 2023 budget. As you can see on page 2 of the analysis, the largest portion of the department's budget, the general fund budget, totals $127.4 million and increases by $8.6 million or 7.2%, primarily due to increases in personnel expenses such as salary enhancements, 8 new positions, and 3 previously ARPA-funded positions. Additional new costs associated with a full year's funding for 28 other previously grant-funded positions, as well as decreased turnover savings. The other items in the general fund are supply, equipment, and equipment maintenance costs. The special fund portion of the budget totals $1.4 million and decreases by $1.4 million, or approximately 50%. And this is primarily due to the anticipated discontinuance of the fiscal year 2023 SAFER 20 grant. The fiscal year 2024 general fund budget assumes 100% of the salaries for these 28 positions, up from 1/4 in fiscal year 2023 when the grant ended. Now on pages 3 and 4, the exhibit displays the department's budget history as well as the general fund reversions and an anticipated $1.6 million fiscal year 2023 deficit, to be addressed with a $2.9 million budget appropriation transfer request that will be presented to the council on June 5th, 2023. The pie chart shows how the proposed funding will be allocated across programs and expenditures. Fire EMS program personnel represent the largest program allocation, while personnel costs represent the largest category of expenditures. Turning to page 4, the analysis also notes the areas within the budget that support new expenditures that reflect budget flexibility, where potential reductions could be identified if the council wanted to explore such options. Operating budget highlights, which begin on page 5, include personnel, operating expenses, implementation of certain recommendations from the Facet's final report, volunteer fire companies, and grant funding. Additional topics for discussion start on page 11 and include fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, and billings for emergency medical services transports. Capital budget highlights begin on page 15. So at this time, I would like to turn it over for discussion.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments from the members? Chief Rowe?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to sit before you today to promote the fire department budget. As we support the county's efforts to deploy good fiscal practices, the fire department continues to experience impacts that are remaining from the COVID-19 pandemic. Even 3 years later, we still have an increased need for response from the fire department personnel, and we must take great strides to maintain our service level that our citizens deserve. The requests put forth in this budget are made in that spirit. I speak for everyone in the fire department when I say we are very thankful for all the budget efforts the county and the county council provide to us, and we request the council's full support on our budget proposal in order to provide our constituents exemplary and efficient service. I would like to note that the fire department is taking extra efforts to increase or decrease our time in turning around our vacancies, because we know that is of great concern and has made a considerable impact on our budget. In addition to that, we are continuing to make strides towards fulfilling the facets report request, and this budget makes some efforts towards that as well. In addition to our capital projects that have been much needed, we are also working very diligently with those, and we're very excited about the forward progress that we've made on those efforts. And I am ready for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ron. Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Let's go ahead, Councilman Copeland.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief Ron, and thank you for your brevity. We've experienced some dissertations from some of your colleagues in terms of the overall discussion on the budget. Question about the 8 new positions and the ARPA. I think there's 3 new positions related to ARPA funding. So what are the 8 new positions, and the practice of, if I'm understanding it correctly, taking positions that were funded through ARPA and now having them become permanent budget positions? Is that what's going on? And if so, why?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. The 8 new positions are in various different areas. There is a couple that will assist us with improving human resources efforts within the department. We do not have a human resources unit, so that we are working with the administration to be diligent in that aspect and trying to provide better services for our members. In addition to that, we have also placed in service what is called an MDO position, which is a medical duty officer. That includes 2 positions that will be in the 911 center that will be focused on our ambulance transports, the busyness of the hospitals, and making a more efficient service to provide turnaround times on those ambulances, getting our citizens to treatment quicker, making sure ambulances stay in service in a much quicker effort. And then there is a position that is also going in the emergency management office. As you've noticed, we have had a much larger need for our emergency management services over the past couple of years. So we're working very diligently to make sure that that office has the services that is needed. That will cover the positions that we had put forward into the budget. And with regards to positions that were funded in ARPA funding and then moved over to the budget, the main budget, the general fund, is because once those positions or the funding goes away in ARPA, we will still need those positions. So we're making an effort to make sure that they are placed in an area where they can be funded. I hope that answers your question, sir. And Charlotte,
Yes.
I don't know if you have anything additionally to add that to help him out with that.
Good afternoon. You just had the 4 fatals for the tanker.
Sorry, could you repeat? I couldn't make that out.
We have added a tanker to the fleet, and so we needed 4 drivers for that tanker. So that's the 4 additional positions that were included in the 8.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Chief.
And those tankers were
Thank
very
you, sir.
instrumental with the Soldiers Delight fire.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions or comments? Chief, I guess, well, let me start with the Madam AO, Ms. Rogers. Have your hand up.
Good afternoon, council members. I just wanted to reiterate the issue regarding our proposed transition of some ARPA funded positions to general fund positions. All departments were asked to assess whether or not their ARPA funded positions would be needed after December 2024. Based on the services that they were providing, would they continue? And all departments had to assess those ARPA funded positions. We have provided to the auditors the summary of our ARPA funded positions, those that we're requesting be transferred to general funds in the 2024 budget, and then those that remain. The reason why we could not wait to make that assessment is we do not know what the economy will be this time next year, and all of the funds we may not have enough flexibility to be able to fund all the ARPA positions that we need to continue. These are critical services that were utilized during COVID, but the departments realize that they still need these services. That is why we started this transition this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since some of the questions were just related to positions, and I guess I'll ask one question. In the analysis, page 12, it mentioned about the unprecedented turnover and voluntary separations. Chief Run, I just wanted to get your opinion or feelings on why you're feeling that now. It mainly because of the way it was worded, your unprecedented turnover, and these are voluntary separations. Why you think that's happening right now?
Sir, thank you for that question. So what we are finding is that COVID-19 had a significant impact on our staff, and there are some members that joined us during the COVID pandemic and realizing the impact and that it just was not for them. In addition to that, we've also had some older members that were thinking about retirement and just made the decision to move on a little quicker than usual. COVID-19 has made a significant impact across the nation, quite honestly, with regards to this, and all fire service and emergency service personnel, to include police, et cetera, and EMS are feeling the impact of that, sir.
I appreciate the answer. And on that, this is more FYI for me, just because I don't like to use anecdotal things just for a budget hearing. But what's the state of our fire academy facility and just capabilities?
Yes, sir. We are lucky to have Stevenson, which has increased our capabilities significantly. So we should be able to bring in on a larger class this time to hopefully fulfill the vacancies. Our original training academy is still as it is. It's status quo. It is in the plans to be looked at and to be improved. We did get some funding approved for that, and we are hopeful that we'll move that project along soon. We had a kind of a kickoff meeting to talk about what is needed for that. So we will hopefully be able to give you some timelines and more updates on that soon. Stevenson is a significant help to us because we will be able to double the size of our training academy class to get more personnel out there on the street so that we can reduce our impact of callback.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. If we could, one more question.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask about, so one, I think we've all experienced or seen the new apparatus we have at our professional fire stations. I appreciate the administration's work on that and yours and Nick. I guess now and I think one of the questions when we first met years ago was how could I be helpful in my previous position related to apparatus. I guess now that we have some updated and equipment that needed to be replaced, what's the status of our reserve fleet and where are we at with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. As far as our apparatus goes, we are making a great stride towards baselining all of our equipment. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And thank you very much for those replacement pieces. We still have some strides to make with regards to our trucks. We're up to date more so with our engines and our ambulances. And we have made a significant effort in working with the fleet division to establish our rotation and our replacement process. So we're working diligently on that. Our goal is to have a really good plan together with regards to replacement for units. There's variables of decision-making with that. It has to do with mileage, years, and actually the status of the equipment and how well it's holding up, if you will. This type of equipment that we've gotten in has made a significant impact and is doing much better than our past line of equipment. So we're looking very forward to being fully baselined here soon. We still have some more equipment coming in this time to bring us up to that baseline, but we're getting much closer, sir. And I'll be more than happy to have a written document follow this up so you can get a much better picture of that.
Appreciate that. And the status of our reserve fleet?
We currently do not have any reserve trucks. We're looking fairly good for our reserve engines. We're doing okay for that. And same thing with the ambulances, but we are out of reserve trucks at this time.
Got it. And
And just for an explanation, I apologize. Trucks are with the ladders, engines are with the water for anyone who needs further explanation.
Understood. With our relationship with other jurisdictions that may have different standards related to retiring their vehicles, their apparatus, do we have any partnerships? A truck, even older from another jurisdiction, would be better than no truck. Do we have any, is there any conversations around that to sort of fill that hole or fill that gap?
Yes, sir. We're actually, we've been working with other jurisdictions for about 2 years now with regards to creating an agreement between all the jurisdictions with regards to many things, ordering apparatus, assisting each other with making sure when we know that our apparatus is down and we may need a few more mutual aid efforts. We did just recently assist Baltimore City with their fleet needs. So yes, sir, there is a great stride being made towards that. And we actually, you can be proud of Baltimore County for being the ones that actually started that group. But we meet with all the surrounding mutual aid departments monthly and talk about what our status is with regards to our apparatus and how we're looking.
I really appreciate the answers. And one thing still tied to that, with Baltimore County standards, we have filed national standards. Other jurisdictions may have different standards related to when they rotate out, or not decommission, but rotate out their frontline fleet and put it into reserve. Are we in need of an update in terms of our timeline for the life of our trucks at our professional stations? And if so, who going through you to talk about our fleet standards? Is that going through you? Is that through another department through the county?
Our department works in conjunction with the fleet division of the county. We do not actually have that. OBF's fleet division maintains the rotation and determines whether or not we can have our equipment replaced. We provide feedback with regards to what we believe our needs are and work as a team with them, sir.
How many folks from the fleet department have experience as professional firefighters with the professional firefighting service?
I am not able to answer that, sir. I apologize.
No worries. Just
I can
curious.
certainly find out for you and let you know.
They are making the decisions related to our professional firefighter services and the rotation of our fleet, correct?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember, we'll get back to you. That would be on the operational side, the OBF. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. That will be on the
So
OPM or
this would be
which one?
EOM. So this would be
EOM.
heavy equipment is through DPWT if we're talking
right.
about the large equipment.
And Jim Montgomery, the fleet manager of that side, works closely with Craig Bittinger and stuff to develop those
Specs.
schedules and specs as well as the replacement plans.
Excellent. It'd be great to know if any of them have any experience with professional fire service. Thank you very much.
Did you say with the professional fire equipment or service?
How about bills?
Said service.
Service?
Service.
Well, Jim Montgomery, the fleet manager, works with Craig Bittinger, correct me, Chief, is Craig a deputy or I forget his title. He works with the fire supply in that regards.
Yes, sir. He is a bureau chief, sir.
Bureau chief.
Yes. Yes, he has field experience.
Outstanding. Looking forward to getting a response back. Thank you.
Chief Ron, how many reserve trucks do we have?
We do not have any reserve trucks.
We don't have any available today, but how many do we have? In the fleet. I'm assuming that they're being used. You're saying we have none available? I know we have none available today. Are you telling me
Yes, sir.
we don't have any?
They were put in
I-
service, Chief?
Let me get back with you on that, sir. I believe there's 2.
2 out of how many truck companies?
Out of 12.
Okay. Have we gotten rid of any trucks in the last 3 years?
I will have to get back with you on that, sir. I believe we have.
Okay, but I'm just thinking we could certainly use one today.
Yes, sir.
And once we pay for them, I guess all we have to do is find a place to store them. But anyway, I understand it's a little more complicated. Are there any additional questions or comments from the members?
Chairman,
Councilman Mark?
thank you very much. I want to thank my colleagues for raising the issue of redundancy in the system, making sure that we have reserve apparatus. So I think that's an excellent question. Thank you all for doing that. Chief Run, I want to thank you for engaging my office as we look at the need for additional volunteer fire stations, consolidation, a lot of the issues. Can you just let everyone know the status of the plan, the deployment study that's going to lead to some conclusions on that?
Yes, sir. We will be looking at presenting a request for a deployment study that taps onto the facets study that we had that will help the county be able to project out in the future what we will need apparatus wise, fire station wise, etc.
Okay. And that's going to be coming up this fall, I guess?
We will be making that request. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Again, thank you for the consideration, the openness with which you've engaged our office. I do appreciate it. I have a question about the Fullerton Fire Station, and Chief Run, I'm only bringing this up because we're not talking to property management. So you're the most logical person to mention this to. As you know, we're getting ready to fund improvements to the locker rooms there. I have had some concerns raised to me about other conditions at the fire station, specifically the fact that the station has its original alert system from 1973, kitchen issues, leaking windows, flooring. I just wonder if this is the reflection of what's been raised to me, we're going ahead with these locker room changes, but we're not addressing some of the core issues with the fire station. So I would certainly appreciate Mr. Reed or anyone overseeing property management if they could talk to me about these issues, since we're getting ready to move ahead with this, the renovations of the locker space.
Yeah, it's Chief. If
Sir,
I'm sorry. Go on, Chief.
No. Go ahead, Kevin. Please go ahead.
No, it's my understanding that we have been working with property management's been working with both the fire department and areas of that location, and we'll have to look into any concerns. But again, that hasn't trickled up to me. Chief, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yes, sir. So the plans that you mentioned, there are also smaller projects in the works with property management, and windows and leaks and things like that are in those plans. So I will do this, sir. I will go back and I will take a look at that because things have been brought to our attention, and Deb and I have been working together to make sure that they're inclusive of that very large project. So there may be things that are happening that may not be the personnel themselves that are asking questions or bringing it to your attention may not be in the loop of. So we'll make sure that we communicate better with Station 8 and Fullerton to make sure they understand what is happening there, and we will certainly provide you some more information, sir.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I have the highest respect for you, Chief Rund. You've been a consummate professional, and I also have a great deal of respect, obviously, for Mr. Reed and Ms. Schindel. They've done wonders at property management, and I thank you for looking into those issues.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
You know, Chief, on that same note, what is the status of, we have some long-term plans to renovate many of those stations around the Beltway that have been there for years. I mean, I've gone into stations in the wintertime and so much air is coming through the windows. It's like, I mean, we have to be wasting money by just trying to heat this old building versus putting new windows in. And then after that, well, I'll wait for that answer first.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So we've been working very closely with property management, and we actually have several fire stations in the lineup to start the assessment. As you know, the county has a property plan that they're working on to assess all the buildings within the county. And we're very excited to have several of our fire stations on that list. And I'll be happy to provide you that list so that you can have the update of what we're looking at. Windows are definitely one of them because we agree when we upgrade all of the HVAC systems and things like that, that we should also be taking a look at the windows. But again, there's only so many funds to go around. So we're making sure we're staying attentive to that, sir, and working very closely with property management, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
Okay, I thank you. I guess the next question I had was dealing with furniture replacement in the stations, as well as exercise equipment for the stations.
I'm sorry, sir, you were broken up. Can you?
Yes,
the first part, I
about
heard exercise.
what is the plan for furniture replacement in some of the stations and exercise equipment? I just felt it sort of embarrassing to think that the furniture we have must be donated because we don't buy it. And in regards to some of the exercise equipment, to be quite frank, it's good that people give us things when we don't have it, but it does incur a certain liability when we say that this is important, but we have to wait for somebody to give us their hand-me-downs.
Yes, sir. We actually have that in the budget this year, and the fitness equipment, we got some funding last year, and we were working closely with purchasing to get that ordered. So we should be very close to putting that fitness equipment in the fire stations very soon. And as far as furniture, I believe we got some funding in this year's budget, and we're looking very forward to updating some of the furniture in the fire stations. And I believe Madam CAO has her hand up, sir.
Okay, so when you get a chance, if you could be so kind to give me some timelines and some projections on those items. Yes, Madam AO, Ms. Rogers.
Just wanted to reiterate, since my arrival in 2019, we've definitely been replacing chairs in fire stations because it was brought to my attention that there was broken furniture that was being taken out of dumpsters and all kinds of things. And we changed our contracts to update the type of furniture and chairs in particular, because that's what the department indicated that was most desperately needed. And we have outfitted a number of the fire stations with chairs, and that is continuing because we did not find that to be acceptable at all in terms of what the fire stations were doing to provide chairs. The furniture piece, the one part I want to indicate is that the fire department as well as for some equipment for the police department, we are using an existing contract because the Department of Aging got their new equipment too, exercise equipment. So that has been underway. Happy to provide, timelines. We've got to order the furniture. We got to order the equipment. But in fiscal year 23, we started the exercise equipment replacement project for our police department and fire, as well as aging.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments from the members?
Sir, if I may, I have an update for you with regards to our apparatus. We actually have 7 frontline trucks and we have 4 reserve trucks. Currently, all of our reserves are in place because our other trucks are either out for maintenance or we just have one that broke a spring.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, if there's no additional questions or comments, I guess we'll move on. Lauren, I guess we'll move right into OIT.
Thank you very much, sir. Everyone have a good day.
Chief Ron, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So Zach Ament from my office will be giving the overview of the Office of Information Technology's FY24 budgets.
Zach, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I thought I had muted. Good afternoon. The proposed FY 2024 budget for the Office of Information Technology totals $58.6 million, an increase of $8.2 million or 16.3% over the FY 2023 budget. As you can see on pages 1 and 2, the largest portion of the office's budget, the general fund budget, totals $43.4 million. And then increases by 3.2 million or 8% due to personnel expenses such as COLA, increments and longevities, 2 net new positions, and it's all partially offset by increased turnover savings. Another major increase is various infrastructure and application cost increases, including the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, Amazon Web Services, and Motorola Computer-Aided Dispatch. The new special fund portion of the budget totals $2.7 million for the new Maryland Connected Devices Grant Program. The capital portion of the budget, specifically for the Enhanced Productivity Through Technology project, the Tech Fund totals $12.4 million, increase of $2.2 million or 21.5% for continuing projects such as Workday implementation of broadband and new projects such as safety, hardware, software, and constituent systems. On page 3, the exhibit displays the office's budget history as well as the general fund reversions and an initially estimated FY 2023 deficit of $69,000, which OBF recently advised should not occur. The pie charts show how the proposed FY 2020, the proposed funding will be allocated across program and expenditures, with infrastructure representing the largest program allocation and personnel costs representing the largest expenditure. The analysis notes the areas within general fund and capital fund budgets that support the new expenditures or reflect budget flexibility where potential reductions could be identified. If the council wants to explore such options, operating budgets also begin on page 4 and include personnel expenses, non-personnel expenses, the engagement division, and Maryland Connected Devices Grant Program, and 3-on-1 operations. Capital budget highlights for the Tech Fund begin on page 11. At this time, I would like to turn it over for discussion.
Thank you very much, Zach. Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Councilor Bennett.
Madam AO, I hate to beat a dead horse to death, but I see there's an awful lot of quote, part-time, unquote, in this agency. And my question is, what % of them are in the retirement system?
Councilmember Catch, if you could kindly replace the nomenclature part-time with non-merit, that might
Yeah.
make it a little better. All non-merit employees who are full-time, because that's the problem with that word part-time. These are full-time employees. They all have their ability to enter into the retirement system. These individuals work 36 hours or more, and all Baltimore County employees now have the right to enter into the retirement system if they are, regardless of whether they're merit or non-merit.
So the 187 non-merit employees, you don't know whether or not what percent of them would really be part-time, or would it be none?
That PT stands for non-merit. I would, I would want to look at them all, but I would venture to say that none of them are part-time employees, people working under 25 hours. That's the problem with that nomenclature.
Right. Oh,
These people are just
I
non-merit.
agree with you. It's very misleading. Very misleading, and hopefully you'll be able to make that correction. Can I assume that the quote full-time unquote employees, that they're all in the retirement system?
Mr. Joy just indicated that they are, because the non-merit classification and our current law about entrance into the retirement system, which was adjusted last year, I believe, enables individuals to enter into the pension system. Now, mind you, they have to vest just like everyone else. A non-merit employee has the same rights to enter into the pension system as a merit employee.
Right.
It's based on being a full-time employee. So none of those positions, according to Mr. Joy, I can't see the list of the 100 and some positions you're talking about, but if it says PT, just exchange that with non-merit, and those are regular positions, 36 hours or more.
I got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
This is the budget analyst. I'm looking at the list right now. Virtually all of these employees are at least 34 hours or 39 hours. All of those employees noted as part-time
Okay.
are non-merit employees, just like Madam Mayo just noted. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
That PT is something that we just have to get out of our system, in our records, because it's not accurate. It's no longer officially used, but it still makes its way into our records some kind of way.
Well, that could be one of your tasks, to get rid of that non-merit and find better descriptions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Michael Freed, I guess you're on, sir.
Thank you, sir. I will try not to read a novel for brevity's sake, but I would like to thank the council members as well as you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to discuss our proposed budget for the Office of Information Technology. I would like to start briefly just by thanking Director Reed, the county executive, and Madam Mayo for their guidance during this process. Since at the county level, it's been new to me. I also do want to make sure I thank our team, Kelly, Andrew, Dana, and the rest of the OIT team, who put a significant amount of work into getting this presentation ready for you. I want to talk briefly about where we are, where we're going, and then the resources that we believe we need to get there in order for Baltimore County to continue to thrive. We have to continue investing in technology. We need to build on the foundation of strength in OIT. We need to become more agile, take an enterprise approach to systems, as well as work with our department colleagues to build out capacity on the front lines. We need to explore the value of new technologies and ensure that we empower every resident of Baltimore County. The proposed budget represents a step towards these goals and the much needed growth within the Office of IT. Touching briefly on where we are. In the last year, OIT completed 61 large projects, 44 small projects, 27 what we call consolidated engineering projects. These are day-to-day support. We also fielded 68,000 service calls, and from that generated 50,000 tickets. That's just the kind of daily work of the department. On top of that, we supported the implementation of Workday Phase 1 and are in the throes of the payroll time and attendance rollout now, which is going exceedingly well. We've also continued our investments in cybersecurity, as well as some notable system implementations. There were some questions in the document around 311, so I want to talk about that briefly. The 311 group began taking calls April 1st, 2020, started with 8 contract employees who were converted to non-Merritt County employees over the course of that year. 1 supervisor and then the 311 program manager. For the full year of 2022, we handled 71,000 inbound calls with that group. And as we noted, we've essentially held to no growth in that department. The way that we've done that is leveraging technology as well as our process improvement as we get better at handling these things. But a lot of it, fundamentally, a lot of the reason we're able to hold that, the increased volume, comes from like intelligent routing and being able to put additional info in the call trees and those sorts of things. So we are excited about 311, and we're excited about using it to build on our enterprise strategy as well. So we're also working with other departments to talk about what call centers they have and what constituent points of interaction they have. And so how do we, one, from a systems perspective, expand that view and make services more efficient and effective? And 2, how can we help share the burden and back each other up on an operational side? That's a little bit about where we are. Briefly, I want to talk about where we're going, what our vision is for this organization. I believe we're the best government technology organization in the state by far, and I believe that we'll become the best in the world. We're moving towards an enterprise approach to systems. That's something you'll hear me keep saying a lot. But things like our CRM system, grants management, volunteer management, learning management systems. What's happening is we're seeing a big shift where large technology systems that work across multiple departments are coming in to replace kind of best-in-class smaller systems. And while both are still true, we think it's incumbent on us to bridge the gap between all of these departments in the county. This year, we're focusing ourselves or orienting ourselves around a set of principles that we think will set us up for success and a culture of innovation. I want to just run through them quickly because I think it sets the tone for the budget requests. The first is to stay focused, so to continue execute and to be very clear and transparent about our priorities and ownership of projects. We want to be flexible, so we need to embrace a culture of agile. We need to invest in change management, because what's happening is as we're putting in new technology systems that are best in class, we also have to help address the business processes at a lot of our departments. That kind of is the long tail on a lot of these technology projects that you see. We also want to focus ourselves on being resilient, not just in the traditional sense of recovering from a cyber attack, but also within our organization and making sure that we have training opportunities. It means building equity and building cross-functional teams while growing the digital skills base of the folks that we serve across the county so everyone can thrive. We also want to be engaged. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about human-centered design principles, really orienting our work and ourselves towards the end users, towards the people who are using our services and consuming our services, as well as our primary customers, which are the department staff. And finally, we want to be expansive. I'm really encouraging our team to think boldly, be creative. We've got a significant amount of pressures here. Those are always going to be the same. Those operational pressures will always be there. And I think it's incumbent on us to create a path out of them by thinking creatively and thinking differently. And as we said, this budget represents steps needed to achieve these goals and the critical investment in our people and the technology needed to support this work. A quick note on the pressures that we're facing fiscally. Big one is move to subscription-based licensing and cloud services. So this is something we're just seeing in the industry in general, where moving away from the traditional model of a large capital investment and then a 18% ongoing licensing costs for a software package. And we're seeing more per user license systems or cloud-based consumption-based licensing. And that puts pressure on our operational budgets over time. We also experience significant competition in our workforce from federal agencies as well as the private industry. We've got a low turnover rate, which we're very proud of, although we see some retirements coming up, so we expect there to be some adjustments along the way. So moving for a minute into how do we get there? How do we achieve this? We're, I believe, an incredibly strong foundation, a vision for growth that focuses on these core principles. Before we talk through the operating and capital budget requests, I did want to touch on the ARPA funding because there were several questions posed to us on ARPA. ARPA is a little bit different, I think, for us than others, where our ARPA funding was really focused on supporting the operations, a lot of the temporary operations within the pandemic, so that many of those costs actually have ended or are ending. And so we have much less pressure to push those into operating. There are a few examples of ones that we know we're going to want to sustain, and we've already begun the process of incorporating those into our budget, either for our Microsoft enterprise agreements, Deep Freeze, one of the library technologies, as well as there is one position, the digital equity coordinator, that we're working closely with Madam AO to figure out the long-term strategy for. As was said, we've submitted our operating budget, which totals $42,474,715. The large driver, that's about a 5.5% increase over last year. The drivers for that are mostly personnel, as well as additional licensing costs. And those licensing costs are things like our Microsoft enterprise agreement, which comes up. And again, this is that's an agreement that is strictly tied to consumption. So that is something that is based on the level and the number of employees that we have and which services from Microsoft we're consuming, as well as CAD and a few other things. It was noted that in addition to our increase, we did ask for 2 new positions. We framed those under a division of engagement. One is a chief of human-centered design, and the second is a technology partnerships lead. So for me, I think hopefully you heard coming from the perspective of how do we become more agile? How do we become more iterative? What is important to us is a bit of a shift change, not just in our culture, but in how we actually approach our work and our projects. And our belief is that these 2 positions are absolutely critical to start that work and add the capacity so that we can better understand our users, document those things better, and forge new partnerships with the business community, the nonprofit community, our partners in the school systems, and others. Moving from our operational budget to the special fund that we have noted in our budget, there's $2.8 million, roughly $2,784,600 to be precise, for the Maryland Connected Device Program grant. This is a state-run program, represents another step towards our goal of achieving full digital inclusion across the county, which for us means every resident, visitor, employee has the tools needed to accomplish their goals. And that's very important because this project represents one piece of it. And there was a question that came back, which is a question we love, which is how are we engaging our other departments and our peers in this program? And that's exactly right, because we are actually taking a holistic approach. So starting with, we have a digital equity work group that meets monthly. We have a holistic plan for addressing people's needs. We know that it's not enough to just give someone a device. It has to be paired with training, it has to be paired with support, it has to be paired with follow-up. And so what we're doing is we're taking the resources available to us, in this case from the state, in this case, and there's other funding that's available in the future as well, there's 13,600 Chromebooks. We're partnering with the library, community college, Department of Aging, HHS, DHCD, and Economic and Workforce Development. And we can provide the detailed list, but each is getting 1,000 to 3,000 computers depending on their capacity. And we're going to have wraparound training services offered to folks, as well as make sure that we have follow-on connections for the folks that we touch to get them connected back into the services provided by the county. So the idea is this isn't just a let's have a distribution event and a press conference and hand them off. It's really how do we establish relationships with folks who are some of the most vulnerable and disconnected in the county, and how can we bring the full force of the government to provide them the wraparound services that they need. Moving finally to our capital budget request, again, represents a continued investment in some of is the most important work in the county. I'm going to highlight a few of the projects that are listed here. There's $1 million to replace the pension management system for the city, or for the county, excuse me. There's various cybersecurity investments. Last year we started a significant push in cybersecurity. It is continued in this budget. Some of the largest ones there are log management, as well as an HHS audit, which will help us to prioritize some of our biggest opportunities for investment in cyber going forward. That's also a mandate that came on the heels of the state's cyber attack. Workday, it's a large cost driver for us, but I also think really represents a fantastic opportunity for the county. What we're seeing now with our level of engagement with the other departments is we're getting to the point of moving past just the nuts and bolts of submitting time and really starting to think strategically about how they handle some of these processes. So it's really been an exciting thing to be a part of. There's also a new health system. So buying a new electronic health record system. We're migrating the county's websites to a whole new platform, which is also we're using as a great opportunity, not just to pay down some legacy tech debt and to move to new technologies, but also to talk with our residents and our constituents about what they would like to see and incorporate those needs into our new website and our new systems. And then finally, we've got a significant investments in the library system, which are, for us, the library is really the front line, especially for some of our most disconnected residents and some of our most vulnerable residents. I know there was questions about some of the new projects. We've got that bucket is about $3.4 million in our capital ask this year. It's mostly made up of some public safety projects that we have coming down. Some we call e-government, which is a bucket for things like our open data program, the new Rec and Parks registration system, as well as our enterprise grants management system, which we are very, very excited about. Finally, just wanted to briefly talk through the contingency line item, which was also called out. So this is a line that covers things like overages or change orders or projects that we know are coming, but are maybe in more of the early stages of evaluation. One concrete example this year is that we're working on an energy monitoring system for the county's buildings and facilities. That's something we're still in early phases of flushing out. We have some general estimates of costs, and so we put them in that contingency line item, knowing that there could be some movement there. This also provides us that flexibility, as I said earlier, with some of those vendor licensing model changes to be able to be responsive to those things. So, while we continue to be focused on controlling costs and being good stewards of the taxpayer money, we do respectfully disagree with recommendations to reduce funding. Our proposed budget really reflects not only our priorities, but we believe are the foundational changes needed for the county's future. The two new roles are a start towards creating a more agile and responsive organization, can flex our own capacity through partnerships, and the projects identified on our capital proposal are critical to our cybersecurity and enterprise operations. Believe that we're in an exceptionally great position with an OIT. There is an incredible platform on here within which we can build an amazing future for the county, but we need to be intentional about our investments. We need to focus on agility, innovation, and capacity building across the enterprise. I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to serve in this capacity and to present this budget for your consideration, and welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the members? And I see Councilman Cash.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a statement and two questions. First of all, I can't tell you how appreciative my constituents are in northern Baltimore County, and I'm sure that you yourself, Mr. Chairman, and the other council members who have constituents who live in rural areas. But this office, and Mr. Davis is coordinating it, the efforts they've made to secure funds and provide internet service for those not served today because they're so far out from the center part of the county is much appreciated. And I think that the speed at which this program is being implemented is something that I just compliment your office for all that you've done. My first question is, I guess, a loaded question, but then I have another one after that. I see Baltimore County, OIT, and I see the Board of Education of Baltimore County having its own OIT. Do you, in lieu of what's happened in the past, do you have a strong relationship with OIT in the school system? Are you able to work together? Because obviously there were some problems with the education system, and I, do not consider it a sign of weakness to ask for help. And I hope, and I'm just wondering, what is anything happening with your office and the Board of Education to strengthen both systems? Then I have one more question after that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that question. I would say, just to your earlier comment, we are very proud of that program as well. And our belief is that after this last round of investments between us and Comcast, we're going to have covered more than 99% of the county, which is truly fantastic and is a testament to the good work happening on that ground. So very happy to hear it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's rather stunning, to be perfectly honest with you. So,
absolutely. To your question around the education system, I'm a big believer in partnerships. So within I want to say it was my first month here, but I'll cover myself and say within the first 6 weeks, me and members of my leadership team went and met with the school system's IT team and said, we want to forge a relationship. We want to work together and we want to be close partners. I think there are practical ways that we could collaborate. There are certainly significant challenges just structurally. We each have different rules and regulations that guide a lot of our data and those sorts of things. But, on the other hand, we're both investing significantly in technology systems. A lot of times educational institutions enjoy access to licensing that the rest of the world doesn't. But all that to say, what we agreed with was we said, look, we will have a standing meeting where our leadership teams will come together and just review projects that we're working on and talk about areas for partnership. I believe in doing that, we'll develop relationships. We also, there were a handful of, actual specific actions that came out of that where, we had connected with each other and, paired our teams up to help talk through things and those sorts of things. We're doing some large implementations now that they have on their horizon. And so they are looking to us, things like Workday and ERP implementation, they explicitly asked us for help on. So we intend to be good partners. One specific follow-up we did, you said about asking for help or learning from each other. I'm a big believer in that as well. There was a public audit report that was released around the school system's cybersecurity incident. And so we gave that to our operational team to go through and make sure that we had done any remediation so that just what you said, sir, we can learn from what happened in those other spaces. So, that's kind of the level of partnership that we have. I think there's probably a lot there that we could work together, but I do think it's going to be a bit of a long road just in terms of building those bridges and figuring out how we can do it.
Yeah, because I always get concerned. Well, first of all, I'm thankful that you're hopefully learning from one another, helping one another out. But I always get concerned about, I hope that the county is not, in essence, overspending when you take what we we pay for the school systems department and your department. And yeah, I imagine there's some areas of redundancy that, yeah, that could be, well, done by one or the other. And so that's all I'll say there. But my third question goes to the state program to provide the Chromebook devices, the figure of 13,600. Is that a number that the state has determined that in this first phase, that's the number of Chromebooks that we're going to distribute?
So the state actually got an allocation of about, and I'll follow up with you with the specific number, if that's all right, just I don't want to misquote. I believe it was about 140,000 Chromebooks for the entire state. And what happened is jurisdictions had to apply to the state broadband office. So we submitted an application. That number was actually from the ground up. So what that number was a result of convening all of those partners that we talked about before and asking, okay, what's a realistic capacity to get these out the door? Because we certainly didn't want to be sitting on them. The state has indicated to us, at least as of last quarter, that there were several jurisdictions who had not asked for Chromebooks. And there were several who hadn't asked for as many more. So I think there's more behind this, is what I would say, that we can have access to if we need them. But it was a ground up number is the way that we built it.
So do we have an idea of how many families in Baltimore County meet this criteria? I'm sure it exceeds 13,600, but do we have any idea of what that number is?
So the answer to that is not a great one.
Right.
This is an area that there's really not great data around, especially in a place like the county, meaning that there are tons of census information, in terms of broadband access, and the FCC produces some maps, but, we're going to look again with these programs in great shape based on that. There is not a lot in terms of the analytics that happen around actual digital disconnection and what that need is. Because a lot of these things, people will say, well, hold on, somebody's got a phone, so that's good enough for them. But that's not enough for a kid to do their homework. So one of the things we're actually working on under the direction of Madam AO is we're working on a project with Morgan State and Coppin University that is trying to do more proactive surveying of digital equity needs across the county.
Now, I noticed that reading the report on this, I don't see our Baltimore County public school system mentioned at all. That some of our students in certain grade levels have a laptop or whatever. What are these? These are, okay, the Chromebooks. They use them, they have them 24 hours a day. Is there any cooperation between this program and what's happening in the school system? I mean, if you have a family that has a child that has access to a Chromebook 24 hours a day, and you have another family, both families qualify, that they don't have one at all. Are you going to give any preference to the family that has none at all compared to a family that has one from the school system? And how are you going to know who in the school system has been provided a Chromebook? And what about the issue of someone losing a Chromebook from this program, or it becomes broken or inoperable? Could you tell me what kind of, do you have backup services, et cetera?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. So there's a couple things there, a lot to unpack. The first is that there are separate and distinct federal programs at the moment for school systems Chromebook distribution. So the most notable one is the Emergency Connectivity Fund that I believe Baltimore County Public Schools was funded through, but we will get you those details. In general, and in those programs, what we see is that the schools end up being under a much tighter restriction in terms of whom they can give devices to and how they're used, or so they give devices to everyone, but they say, well, it has to be used for educational purposes by the student only. And so we also know that in a practical world, as you said, if somebody brought home a Chromebook, if that becomes the only computing device in that family, and they're breaking a rule by not doing it. So in other words, I think that that's the reason we explicitly did not include them in this distribution. It's by design because they have that pot of resources. Now, that does not mean we're partnering with them at all. It means the opposite, which is we're partnering with them to be more of a backstop, to say that where you have folks whose needs aren't met because maybe the school's program is too restrictive, we can come in and augment that capacity through programs like this. And then just one more comment, and then I'll turn it over to Madam AO, is that in terms, we expect in programs like this, there to be a large number of these computers that get broken, that some will get stolen. There's much less, the dollar amounts of these computers are pretty low individually, so there's actually much less theft and selling on the secondary market of the Chromebooks themselves. A bigger issue that I've seen just in the state, in my other experience, is they get broken, they do small damages and those sorts of things. And so, this program itself doesn't allow for, those sorts of returns, but we are hopeful to use things like our partnerships with PCs for People and other community-based organizations. And here again is where we talk about a wraparound approach, using the library system to come in and say, here's how you can get support for your device. Here's how you can have an issue, because I'm less worried of a screen breaking, to be honest, than I am someone taking it home, getting intimidated and not being able to realize the full value of it. So that's where I think those wraparound services become very important. Madam AO, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Well, Director Freed, you touched on the portion that I was, but I'll just say this, that Councilmember Catch, one of the ongoing efforts is that we're trying to assess just that. It's one thing to have equipment in your home, and this is through the survey work that we've done, and we're happy to share that information with you. The connectivity part, then there's the affordability part, and then there is the sustainability of a family being able to have a working laptop for their needs long term. So we're trying to address this, what we most refer to as the digital divide from all of those areas. What is it that members of our community need to have sustainable, usable access from all of those fronts? And our partnership with Verizon is helping us with that. Work that we've done to survey families, that OIT has a final report that's being wrapped up that talks about where in our county we had connectivity needs. And you already talked about how we're working with North County. But then the next thing is, how reasonable is it to expect that if something happens to a family's laptop, that they can get it repaired? We're getting that data, so we really know how to meet the broader needs, more than just issuing a laptop, which some of the programs have historically focused on. That's not going to create a sustainable accessibility plan for families. So we're taking it a step further, besides just being able to give out a piece of equipment. We've got a lot of small projects in place that I feel like are addressing these issues, and how we have helped families from connectivity, affordability, and now moving over into sustainability when it comes to repair and replacement. We're
What,
happy
what
to talk to you about it.
but what about, it was mentioned about education and those kinds of things. You know, you obviously just don't give families this Chromebook. And although if the family is young, I don't think there's going to be any problems. I mean, the younger people, you know, they can just open up a computer. It's amazing what they can do. But so those people who, I mean, there's still some people who will open up a computer and freeze. I mean, they're just frightened by it. Uh, what what are the education programs, and have they been planned, and are they going to be held in libraries or
These are
citizen centers, etc.?
actually a lot of that work is happening already, sir. Our library system has, you know, access and engagement around use of technology for individuals and families. Our aging department, I'm sure Director Riley, when she has an opportunity to share her accomplishments, she'll talk about the work we're doing there. And a lot of that work was in conjunction with DUDE, you know, the Department of Economic Workforce Development, who has our mobile units now that have, they're equipped with laptops and literally have the capability of training on site. Dr. Lynch talked a little bit about it the other day in terms of how that is being done too, because it's not just applying for jobs, but it's really learning how to use technology to assist with your day-to-day, you know, lives beyond just your smartphone. So yeah, we have a lot of capacity, and the project that Director Freed mentioned, which is a project we're really proud to be a part of as a government partner with Coppin State University and with Morgan State University, that is a federally funded program, will add even more outreach in several communities here in the county. In West Baltimore, connected with Coppin State, Woodlawn, Lochern, and Milford communities. And then in East Baltimore County with Morgan State University, we are partnering with Turner Station, where we're going to do just that. That one has a little bit more of a nuance toward digital equity associated with telemedicine and telehealth, how to train community members on utilizing computer equipment to engage with the medical community. That's a part of our project, but it's a federally funded program that we're really pleased because it's given us some resources to do more surveying. They're paying us or giving us the money, which we'll be bringing through to you all sometime this summer, to do further surveying, community level surveying on what communities need to bridge the digital divide.
You realize 13,600 families. It's a lot of people. That is
Correct.
a lot of people. And, you know, I don't want to comment on our two new council members, but one of them, I won't mention his name, he's from the first district, couldn't get his computer to work. So he called me down and I said, well, you know, it always helps to turn it on first. It was pretty sad but you know, I guess that's to be expected. So as I said, I would not mention Councilman Young's name, which but and I think he probably won't remember this incident. But anyhow, thank you very much. And I, you know, being a former teacher, I'm really interested how you how the progress is going with 13,600 families.
And
All right. Well,
I-
thank you, Councilman Cat. Councilman Young, thank you for your patience. You've been had your hand up for a long time.
I'll go, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate one Director Freed. Sorry. Wanted to one, thank you for the responses and for using the analyst report and guiding you in your presentation to us. So thank you for that. It made it much easier to follow along with where you were and the state of your budget. One, I know that you're new and I know you have big plans, and you said that you're going to be saying enterprise-wide approach for a very long time. I'm telling you, I'm here for it. I'm all about an enterprise-wide approach. And I would like to actually, so it's at the beginning stages of this, I recognize that, but I want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell us what you're seeing or what you perceive as being challenges to implementing that across the entire county. As we know, when we try to do things at the state level, it's a very large ship to try and turn, and you have departments that are trying to find the best way to put it. They have their way of doing things, and trying to convince them to do it another way is hard to do. So I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell us, with knowing that that's your mindset, knowing that's the direction you want to go, what you see as potential pitfalls and challenges to implementing a enterprise-wide approach to IT services, billing, other things like that across the county.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If only we could just fully fund our budget all the time, everything would be solved. No, quite honestly, I think you actually touched on one of the biggest challenges that we see. So, let me start with kind of some of our general observations have been that we've seen similar type requests come in from several different places, right? And so it clearly becomes that with the trend in the technology industry, as you're very aware of, sir, the need for an enterprise approach. Now, the thing about enterprise approaches is they require a couple things. One is they require really strong change management. So one of the areas where we struggle is incorporating our project management organization with the process change management that needs to happen for solutions to be implemented. That said, and to get there, understanding upfront. So the reason I care so much about the human-centered design and the upfront stuff is because I think that we could do a better job of really understanding the context of our users, understanding how they interact with technologies and what they're trying to accomplish. I think a lot of times it's easy in the technology world to focus on describing things as they are and then trying to put a new technology system in place on a process that is either outdated or was built with a lot of workarounds for the old technology system. So, for me, the areas that I think we want to focus on are beginning, middle, and end. The beginning of understanding that context, really being focused on the design. The middle, thinking about how we're strategic about procurements and partnerships, and how we evaluate solutions we already have. So in other words, I had a great conversation with Chief Rund, and she said, look, we've got to do this and we've got to do that, and we've got all these things. But we also have about 1,600 other paper processes that we do that kind of always get dropped off. And so, we've got things like SharePoint, and we've got a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. We should have teams who are going around to digitize those processes. But again, that requires us really understanding it, being embedded there. And then on the end part, I think being able to run change management with our partners. So it's, a lot of our work around the Workday system right now is working with OHR and OBF on, we're not solving technology problems every day, candidly. We're working on workflow problems, right? We're working on, well, hold on, how does this payroll supposed to flow? What's an ideal way for it to do? So, that's kind of how we approach it. I hope that was a satisfactory answer for you, sir.
No, absolutely. And I know that, one, I appreciate your staff's willingness to work with the council. We work on CRM. What you are being gracious in hearing from us in terms of our CRM needs. And I know that there's as you've said, link to your system-wide approach, CRM and management for those things with our interaction with our constituents and our citizens. So it absolutely answers that question. I want to applaud you and Madam AO for the creation of your digital equity committee. I just wanted to clarify, you had mentioned that you're also hiring a deputy or a digital equity committee or coordinator. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
And that's the one to support your efforts, obviously, but is that tied to the grant that you're getting from the state? Or this is internal, but also, you have the grant and it's going to assist with your internal committee and your integration across county government to make sure that we're making our decisions and making this attached to everyone that can utilize it in an equitable way, correct?
That's yes. That's I have nothing to say to that other than yes, sir. That's absolutely right. And I think, you know, the other thing about it is there's a significant amount of attention and resources at the state and federal level. And so we also want someone who is actively pursuing those to make sure that Baltimore County is getting our fair share of the available resources to invest in the county.
And last question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Obviously, every organization in the state, you know, local government, have legacy systems that are out of date, don't work. We think of MS-DOS, you know, green screen things. You know, what are we doing to get rid of those systems, but also make sure the councilman catches access to them so there isn't too much change and he doesn't get too confused?
Well, sir, there's only so much I can control. But I would say that, you know, one of the things that we're doing is we're updating our project process to make sure that sunsetting of legacy systems, removing those legacy systems, is accounted for in those projects. Our Chief Technology Officer, Tom DeLuca, I believe, said that to me my first hour on the job. And it's absolutely right. But again, I think it goes into that change management piece of not just the new thing, but how do we move away from the old thing? And again, you know, part of it is also the prioritization of looking through and saying. And so some of the, you know, some of our investments in cybersecurity are really going to help prioritize and drive that work. We're going to do cybersecurity assessments that are going to come back and say, that system that's been sitting out there that everybody's been ignoring because it works for 30 years, it's time to be active about taking it. So that to me is a healthy pressure for an organization.
Great. Thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you,
Councilman Young, are you criticizing floppy disks or something?
Absolutely not. I grew up on floppy disks.
Yeah.
We're both showing our age.
Right. I hate to say this, but the state legislature had them at one time. As you know, they don't anymore. So, but I appreciate your advice, though.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from the members? The only one I have, Director Freed, I guess I was listening to the conversation. We were talking about the computers, and I was just curious, are we continuing to support and staff the RAC centers, AKA PAL centers, with computers?
I believe the answer to that is yes. I'm going to get a real-time answer for you, though.
And then the same with the, you know, our recreation centers, like the community centers.
So, you know, the team worked
Go ahead.
with the library system over the last years, and came up with a model for handling public computers in a way that is both secure for the county and very flexible for folks. So we deploy public computer terminals that can be used for all those sorts of things to libraries as well as to rec and parks.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well, we thank you so much for your time and certainly appreciate the presentation. And next, I guess we'll move on to, what do we have next? Insurance?
Retirement.
Retirement.
Okay, so I would like to introduce Marie Jang from my office, who will be giving the overview on the retirement budget. And you're muted, Marie.
Yeah, sorry, just realized that. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The Office's proposed budget for retirement and Social Security for fiscal year 2024 totals $186.5 million, a decrease of $36.1 million, or 16.2% from the fiscal year 2023 budget. The retirement portion of the budget totals $163.6 million and decreases by $36.9 million, or 18.4%, primarily due to the discontinuance of the one-time additional $50 million contribution above the annual required contribution, or ARC, to the employees' retirement system in fiscal year 2023. This decrease is partially offset by a $13 million increase in the county's ARC to the employees' retirement system for fiscal year 2024. The Social Security portion of the budget totals $22.9 million and increases by $788,000, or 3.6%, due to an increase in FICA contributions associated with the proposed budget's higher salaries. The county is required to make its full annual required contribution under county law. This budget only reflects contributions to the retirement system for general government employees. Funding for component unit employees are appropriated separately within each component unit's budget. Beginning on page 5, we explain the increase to the annual required contribution. In general, salary increases in recent years have and will continue to push up the annual required contribution. As you can see at the top of page 7, the increase in the annual required contribution continues to have a significant impact on the general fund budget. The general fund portion of the annual required contribution and the debt service payments on the county's pension obligation bonds combined totaled $195 million in fiscal year 2024, which is 7.2% of the general fund budget. Beginning on page 8, we discuss the 1.25% COLA to be granted to retirees and beneficiaries on July 1st, 2023. This follows the 3% COLA that was granted on July 1st, 2022. Beginning on page 9, we discuss the retirement system's financial condition. The system's fiduciary net position fell 13.7% in fiscal year 2022, while the system's portfolio experienced a negative 9.9% gross fee return on investments. Beginning on page 12, we explain how recent and pending legislative changes are expected to impact the county's annual required contribution. And on page 14, we discuss the actuary's most recent experience study. More detailed pension system information is available in Appendix C, and a summary of pending legislation that impacts spousal benefits for correctional officers is available in Appendix D. We have identified several topics of interest and have posed a number of questions to the office, which begin on page 5. And at this time, I will turn things over to you for discussion.
Okay. Thank you so very, very much. Next, I guess we'll, Director Reed.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. I have a retirement lullaby coming up at you. There are a lot of numbers, but in all seriousness, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to discuss something that's very important to us on this call, and it's our retirement system. I'd also like to thank the auditors for their comprehensive package here. I always say if there's anything you need to know about the retirement system, go online, and this provides a very comprehensive overview. I wanted to introduce some of my senior leadership on the panel with me. I have Matthew Carpenter, our Deputy Director, our Chief of Treasury Management, Robert Burrows, and then our external partners who are prepared to answer questions for us as well. Mr. Craig Graby from Korn Ferry, who is our actuary for the Employees Retirement System, and Mr. Keith Strunkowski with NEPC, who serves as our investment consultant and advisor to the board. Before I get into the auditor's questions, I just wanted to give some basics about our retirement system. It's a classic defined benefit retirement system or traditional pension, and benefit eligibility and amounts are defined within county code. And benefits are based on the member's length of service and compensation, and depending on what employee the group or what group the employee is in. Our county employees retirement system is a contributory system where a member contributes a percentage of their salary to the system as mandatory to join. And the percentage contribution is based on the member's employee group and time entry into the system. And a basic funding formula for any retirement system is income is our contributions, which come from employees and the employer, plus our investment income. And then obviously our expenses are the benefits and administrative expenses we pay to our members. And our ERS is governed by an 11-member board that's set forth in the county charter that the county council has 2 appointees to. And I will move through some of the talking points that the auditors point out below. And the first one deals with, on page 5, the ARC. So question is, our plans to meet the demands of the increasing ARC over the next 5 years. We have always met the ARC in prior years, and we plan to do so every year going forward. We have a laser focus on commitment from this administration and others to adequately fund this. As identified last year, if surpluses are available, we will consider one-time contributions in the future, which was part of the other question that we had here. When we look at this from a budgetary standpoint, we project about a 5 to 9% increase in our budget contribution to fund the system each year, which is calculated by our actuary and which is factored into our long-term planning. But I also wanted to introduce the concept of willingness to fund. And, numbers tell a lot of the story, but they don't tell part of the story. So when rating agencies come out to look at us and the health of our pension, and again, we're proud to be rated AAA by all three of the major rating agencies again this year, they look at not just the numbers, but also our commitment from the employer as demonstrated by our past behavior and funding commitments and our willingness to fund the ARC. And again, we have always and will always meet this actuarial contribution. Again, it's further evidenced by the additional 50 million contribution last year. And I wanted to thank the Spending Affordability Committee for this exclusion to our guideline to be able to allow us to use additional surpluses in revenue to bolster our commitment to this system. And we look forward to this flexibility in the future. The next topic deals with retiree COLAs, specifically whether retirees can receive COLAs more frequently in the future, and what is the associated cost impact on the county's ARC and systems liability. So this July, eligible retirees will receive a 1.25% COLA. This COLA will cost the system approximately $25.8 million. I'd like to stress that the retiree COLAs are not discretionary, nor are they guaranteed, but are determined based on Section 5-1-235 of the County Code, which states we have what we call a post-retirement increase fund that must earn excess investments above 7% over a 5-year period in order to fund COLAs. So all members who retired prior to July, those who are eligible, are members who were retired prior to July 1, 2010. Members who retired after July 1, 2010 are eligible for COLAs with at least 20 years of credible service if hired before July 1 of 2007, and 25 years of credible service if hired after July 1, 2007. Members must have been retired at least 5 years or 4 years within the drop to be eligible for a COLA. And this is where it gets important. In order to pay for a COLA, there needs to be sufficient funding in the PRIF to produce at least 1% COLA. So again, the cost for a 1.25 this year is about $25.8 million. And so each percentage, as of where we're valued now, costs approximately $20.7 million. After we pay this COLA out this July, the balance in our PRIF will be $4.6 million. So in order to add funds to the PRIF, the average rate of net return over the next 5 calendar years must exceed 7%. For the 5 years ending on July or calendar year 2022, the average return was 3.6. So as we stand now, to the auditor's question, the future is, unless we're earning very high income at 13% or above in calendar year 2023, at this time, future retiree COLAs, at least in the near future, based on the calculation, probably look unlikely. But to the second question, how will this affect the ARC? Specifically, the way the plan is set up, the assumed rate in the PRIF is 7%. But in our general valuation for the retirement system, our assumed discount rate, we assume that we're going to make 6.375 overall on this funding. And that's a very conservative rate. And this difference in the PRIF will cover the cost. So this almost separates out the PRIF from the trust. So in essence, retiree COLAs are pre-funded, as a COLA will not be granted if there's insufficient funding in the PRIF. And I know that offices may get some questions about retiree COLAs, and I'm happy to, if anyone has any questions, I could pause here.
Any questions or comments from the members? Go right ahead, Director Reed.
Thank you, sir. Section 3 on page 9 it talks about the system's financial condition and investment policies, which we are to discuss, including when the funding status will start increasing, as well as our investment policies. So our currently funded status is 60.2%. And this is gradually expected to increase over the next 23 years as the county contributes to the system. And again, we have one of the more conservative discount rates in our peers and in Maryland as well. So again, if we adjust that, if the board and the council were to adjust that discount rate, our funding in the system would rise. So if we assumed a 7% rate, we'd probably have closer to a 65% funded status. So that's important to understand, and it's important to understand that also affects our pay-go going into the system. So again, this system is designed to strengthen over time. Absent excess investment returns, the payments on the amortization schedule are what will move the funded status towards 100%. And this increases about 3% a year. So current payments will have a smaller impact on the funded status. As we get closer to the end of the amortization period, which is 23 years for the majority of our liability, the funding status will improve dramatically. So if we think of this like a mortgage, this ARC should be paid off in 23 years. And at that time, the ERS, assuming everything stays equal and we're making the investment returns we need, our funding will be 95% in 23 years as we pay this down. So when we talk about investment policies, our board relies on the advice of NEPC, which is one of the largest independent investment consulting firms in the industry, as well as CASI, which is a Maryland minority consulting firm. And both these firms attend board meetings monthly or as required by the board. Our fund is well diversified by asset class, and it's also well diversified by investment manager, including 24 investment firms and 57 private equity firms. NEPC reviews each of the investment managers with the board on a regular basis, and asset classes are regularly rebalanced towards a target allocation. Our passive investment comprises approximately 79% of U.S. large cap asset classes and 32% of developed international asset classes and 12% of the fixed income asset class. Our actively managed minority and women-owned firms comprise 16% of the total fund and 22% of active managers. And NEPC presents annual allocation plans to the board, which reviews and adopts a plan that is expected to achieve the best results in our adjusted returns. Universe rankings that we're compared to vary widely based on the asset allocation of the fund. And our consultant NEPC projects return assumptions annually by asset class for 10 to 30 years. And currently the 10 to 30 year projections are 6.52 and 7.3 respectively, again, higher than the discount rate that the board has adopted. And if the council has any questions about our investment policies, we do have Keith Stronkowski on the line if we have any questions, or if Keith has anything he'd like to add.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. I'll start to see if there's, well, let me do a brief intro. So for those of you who are not familiar with NEPC, so we've been the advisor to the county for quite some time now with regards to our firm in the business for 37 years, consulting to folks such as yourself, 400 plus clients, more than $1 trillion under advisement. So one of the larger, not the largest, but certainly a sizable force in the industry. So we operate across 7 regional offices. Headquarters are in Boston, about 400 employees at this point. And a few key features here: we are independently owned by our 40 plus partners. We don't sell products. We don't get paid by money managers for using their products. So we're conflict free. We do one thing and one thing only: we provide investment advice. Just a brief high level overview of NEPC. I know we haven't had the opportunity to chat with each other. I don't think there was a set agenda. I'm happy to take questions or give a few minutes on kind of what we've been up to within the investment portfolio. So I'll look for some direction from you all.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the members? I'll just add one. I know in the years past, it's always been brought up that the question was always asked, were we too conservative in our approach? And one point I remember one of the councilmen made the statement that we could do better if we couldn't do worse if we were flipping a coin.
So, Mr. Chair, I could, as far as, are we too conservative in the investment, the portfolio? Is that you're referencing to? Okay. And I'll turn this over to Keith. I mean, again, our discount rate is 6.375. So it really comes down to the amount of risk we're willing to take. And, as much as, like in personal investments, we don't want to chase returns at the same time balancing accepting loss. But Keith, do you have something you want to add to that as far as our long-term strategy, the board's long-term strategy?
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess we'll step back. I think reading through some of the minutes and coming into this, there was questions around some peer rankings. And those move around a lot. And, I actually did some work before the meeting. I went back and looked kind of what that 10-year stamp looked like over the past few years, starting in 2017. So the last 6 years, right? 17, 18, and 19, we were ranked, 50 or better, I call it. So we did better than half the plans. 2021 and 22, we shifted gears, or the rank shifted gears, right? Went to 75, 80, and almost 90. Part of that, in discussing what Bob and Kevin, is that more conservative approach. And when we're talking about conservative approach, that means lower exposure to public equities. We've been lower than peers probably for the past 10 plus years there, right? So it helped in some time periods. It certainly hurt coming out of COVID when the stock markets took off, right? The interest rates went back to zero. The Feds pushed trillions of dollars into the markets. We saw record returns in the stock market, and that fed through to some of your returns relative to peers. I would point out in 2022, one of the worst years we've seen in quite a long time in the markets. The plan ranked 49th, right, on a calendar year, fiscal year. I think you were 47th. So that defensive nature really paid off. We're not going to see double-digit returns from equities going forward. The comment around flipping a coin, I guess, yes, over time, you could set it and forget it. So pensions are 30 plus year or kind of long-term plans there. What we cannot do is take a 30+% downdraft in the pension. That would certainly put a lot of strain on the budget. Kevin mentioned the good ratings from the credit agencies out there, right? So we have to employ a diversified portfolio. It's different than putting money into your 401k and saying, all right, I'm going to look at that 30 or 40 years. I don't have to worry about it. The pension, we have to manage flows in and out. We have a actuarial target rate of return, which I think we're going to talk to there. So a lot more variables. And we have over time pretty much come close to getting that target, right? So we don't manage to ranks because everybody's different. If I was managing to a 7.5% target, the portfolio would probably look a little bit different, but we certainly don't ignore them either, right? We understand that's kind of the report card that folks that don't look at every day use to look at. But my one takeaway for you all is that ranks are going to move around, and in one of the worst markets we've seen in probably since 2008, and then prior to that in the 70s, the plan held up pretty well and did better than half your peers. We continue to build out alternative assets. So that's private equity and debt. Those have averaged 12+% on year for 10 plus years. So very successful program. So if we're talking about trying to get 6 3/8, 12% certainly helps us there. And then the markets have changed. Since 08, you were getting very little on fixed income. Now you can get 4 or 5%. So that's going to help feed into those returns going forward. And Kevin mentioned that those expected returns over 30 years are in the 7% range. For a while, we were, 5 and 6%. So certainly flip a coin if you could hold out for 30 years in your 401k. Yes, when you're running a pension plan and it feeds into what's going on with the budgets in the county, and there's a lot of different variables there. So that's how I would address that.
All right. Well, thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Pope?
Thank you. Couple of quick questions. One is, and I think it's for Mr. Stronkowski. When you say we're ranked 50th or 90th, how many jurisdictions, what are you comparing that to? What are the total number of jurisdictions that are investing?
Yeah, so we will rank you what's called against an all public plan universe. So that consists of trillions of dollars of assets, depending on what time period, but I would say at least 300 to 400 plus plans out there, right? And they can vary from millions to billions, such as your case, to, hundreds of billions of dollars out there. So there's a wide variety of that. And again, that feeds into the allocation aspects. Those folks that may have a higher target return were running higher equity. And when equities did great, their rankings looked great. Last year, those with a lot of equity finished in the 90th percentile. They were down around 16, 17%. Your plan was down around 12 and change there. But the comparison universe, all public, several hundred plans across the US. And it's not only data from NEPC, it's data from all the investment consulting firms out there. So it's a pretty robust universe.
Thank you. In terms of the risk balance, is the risk balance for a jurisdiction that has a AAA bond rating, are we all about the same, or does it fluctuate, or does bond rating have nothing to do with risk balance?
So I manage to that target return. Right at the end game is we need to hit a bogey, and that feeds in. And I think you're going to have the actuarial discussion coming up next year, but that feeds into the funded status we talked about. And ultimately, our game is right. You have liabilities to meet, we have assets, and then our earnings come into that play there. But the lower risk profile is a play out of that 6 3/8, right? So we were afforded the ability to take on a little bit less equity risk, particularly, and thinking about ranks, you ranked, I'm just trying to pull up some numbers, you ranked over 3 years, you ranked 35th on a risk scale, right? So your risk was lower than 65% of the other plans out there. So it bore out there, but it doesn't feed into the way we manage the ratings. I'm sure when the rating agencies talk with Kevin and others, they probably look at that, right? What's your risk profile? What's your volatility been in your plan? And again, I keep going back to it, but that feeds into the budget too. If you get a down 30 year, that arc is going to be blown out of the water there. So and that feeds into a lot of things.
Yeah, and to Councilman Patoka, to your question too. I mean, what the rating agencies are mostly interested in, again, is the willingness to fund and our past history of meeting or exceeding the ARC, especially in FY23, and again having the ability via the spending affordability to do that if necessary, again to continue to bolster the system, that maybe we could even beat our amortization period in the next 24 years.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Coker. Any additional questions or comments from the members? Hearing none. Anything else, Director Reed?
I'm good if everyone else is.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody. That's it for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We certainly appreciate all the hard work and dedication from our staff of the Auditors Department. So thank you, Lauren and Liz and the staff. And thank everybody for presenting today. Have a great, wait a minute. Hold the phone, hold the phone. Councilman Katz.
Yeah, I just really want to summarize. If we meet the ARC obligations in 23 years, we'll be at 95% funded system, correct?
Yes, sir. If we meet our investment targets of 6.375, which again is on the conservative side, which is definitely, we hope and the board feels, is attainable.
When I was a teacher, we used to get statements from the teacher retirement system each year. And what they would show is how much money the employee had contributed and how much money the state of Maryland had contributed. And those numbers were really an eye-opener. Do we do the same thing with county employees? Do we let them know how much the taxpayers in Baltimore County have given to the system, per employee? Do we do that?
Councilman, we, not specifically by employee. I mean, we have percentages based on employee group that on what they contribute. Again, and your pay stub would outline, the dollar amount. But that's a good point and well taken. That that's part of the fringe factor. It's twofold really. It's what me as an employee contributes to the retirement system on where I am, but also what the employer contributes on our behalf. And again, depending on your asset class, that fringe factor with everything, and it, is higher than 50% in some cases.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. The particular group you're talking about contributes how much of their own money, and then the county puts in 50%?
Well, I'm using that as the varying percentages of an employee class go from anywhere from 7% to some of the public safety areas are in the double digits. And the county contributes, depending on employee class, an additional contribution to the retirement system. I don't have those numbers broken down on the top of my head right now, but that is something we could pull.
Do you, are there any systems in Baltimore County where the employees end up contributing more than the county contributes?
I don't, I'll ask Bob Burrows, are you aware of that, if that's the case at any point?
I'm not aware of that. Maybe Craig knows.
Craig's our actuary.
Yeah, so if you're looking at, there's two components to the contribution. There's a normal cost or service cost, which is the benefits that accrue during the year. So that's kind of the annual 1-year increase in the value of the benefit. And then there's the amortization piece. If you're adding both of those together, you're not going to be in that situation. But if you're looking at Plan B general employees, the employee contribution actually exceeds on an actuarial basis under the funding method used. Exceeds the cost of the benefit in the early years of their employment. So you do see under that general and agency plan only where there might be, the employees contributing more than the value of their benefit in the initial years.
I just think that particular number, if, as I said, the state does it, they will show you. I was in the legislative retirement plan, and they showed that as well, how much the state was contributing. I mean, and a number, and I think that's something that the employees should know, that the commitment that the county has to the retirement system, and exactly how serious that commitment is. But if there's, if you could just send me a few examples of a particular retirement system, what the employee contributes and what the county has, let's say, contributed last year, whatever year is convenient for you, I'd appreciate it.
We can do that, Councilman.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Oh, thank you so much, Captain Cat. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.